Content warning. Show Me Where It Hurts and this recording address issues which may be confronting for some viewers and readers. If anything in this book or recording brings up issues for you, please contact Lifeline on 131114. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Hi, my name's Kathy, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Kylie Maslen, debut author of Show Me Where It Hurts, Living with Invisible Illness, which was released in September this year. This book has been described as a powerful collection of essays that speak to those who have encountered the brush off from doctors, faced endless tests and treatments, and endured chronic pain and suffering. But it is also a bridge reaching out to partners, families, friends, colleagues, doctors, all of those who want to better understand what life looks like where you cannot simply show others where it hurts. So welcome, Kylie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I have read your book and I found it very insightful and very easy to read and understand. For those who haven't read it and people who don't know what it's about, could you just give us a little bit of information about the book and what it's all about?
Sure. So it's a collection of essays that uses pop culture references to help try and explain what life is like when you have illnesses that are invisible. So they are therefore inherently hard to communicate to people you love, people in your life, and to doctors as well. And so it deals with my experience, which in terms of the book is primarily endometriosis, chronic pelvic pain, and complex mental illness. And it sort of charts some of the difficult times that I've had living with invisible illness, but also some of the ways that I have found strength or community or an ability to communicate more clearly in terms of what's happening, what I need, and as a way, I guess, also of thanking the people in my life who have really stuck by me and advocated for me during, some really tough times.
Yeah, you certainly do go through some tough times, and I see towards the end of the book that you're mentioning your family and a big shout out to them because it's hard living with an invisible illness, but it's hard for everybody living with it as well too, and people who love you. So you've certainly got that message across loud and clear. Why did you write the book? Why pop it down on paper?
I was really motivated by the knowledge that having a book like this earlier in my life would have been just such a game changer. It's really lonely and isolating going through some of these experiences, and you question yourself a lot. You are forced to question yourself often by people who don't understand or from doctors who don't believe you. And so I wanted kind of really to reach out to a younger version of myself to encourage her to keep fighting and to validate the pain and experiences she was going through. I also wanted to help those in my life understand what I've been going through, and to help reach the people that surround the lives of someone like myself, to understand what's been happening, what they can do to help, and what are some references, I guess, and by that I don't mean textbooks, I mean like films you can go and watch, that help show what's kind of going through our head a lot of the time, or what I've seen in popular culture that I've kind of thought, yes, that little moment, that I so resonate with that.
Oh, definitely. And it's a great way to communicate to people without it being all medical, information that's way too high for most people to understand and isn't really relevant to how you're feeling. It's more a descriptor for the medical profession. So that's what I liked about it, was that when the use of the pop culture reference and, SpongeBob SquarePants, Spotify playlists, memes, artwork, social media, and movies. So you've covered a wide gamut, so you reach a wide audience, and, you use social media a lot in the book to connect with other people who also have illnesses that are isolating, and it can be quite isolating, and I think that it's a great connection, and the memes that you might have are just a way to say things without words, I think is a really nice way. And what you chose that medium, and why did you choose that particular medium? What was it that resonated with you for those?
I guess firstly, it was an opportunity to kind of flip the invisible with the visible, and to that it's so hard to describe the extent of the pain or the extent of the fatigue that comes from the pain, and so I knew that words weren't enough to do that, but it was really important to me to keep the book really accessible. I mean, that's kind of my writing style anyway. I really, as both a reader and a writer, really try and steer clear of the kind of quite academic style that can be seen in nonfiction sometimes. But I also knew that naturally I was going to reach a larger audience by keeping this easy to read. And I don't mean that in a kind of marketing sense, but just in terms of having, if someone's bought the book, then passing it on to their partner, or people then asking for it at their local library. And also, I guess I had some particular readers in mind as I was writing, and that really helped. Or I would, there are people in my family who haven't finished high school, or haven't gone on to university, live very busy lives with young children. I wanted them to be able to pick up the book and be able to dive in quite quickly. But I also really wanted people who are ill to be able to pick it up at times where, when I'm in pain, I can't read. I find it really difficult, which is quite the challenge when you're a writer. So I wanted something that if someone was having a really tough day, they could pick up the book, just read a little bit, and it might, seeing themselves on the page might help with some of that. I don't want to say depressive ideas, but like just kind of really heavy mind.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that it's very accessible, and I was actually going to comment on your writing style too, because it's not really your traditional nonfiction book. It's not your traditional scientific writing that you get sometimes with medical health kind of books that you can get. What I see, and I felt it was kind of unique to you, but I don't know, maybe other people write like that as well too. But it's not a memoir, but like you said, a series of short essays, not the kind that you have to write for school. And it's just, rather it's a mix of personal journal writing with the support from reference sources. So your reference sources being the pop culture. And I think that, I think that you nailed it. It's very personal, but it's also backed up with some other supporting ideas from other people in that situation. So I thought that was a really clever way to do it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it was meant to be a bit of a hybrid style. I knew that in order to really make the book worthwhile and to really do the work that it needed, it had to be incredibly honest and raw at times, and it is, and often that is recounting some really difficult moments that I've had in my life. But then there's also the humour of pop culture references in there. There's a little bit of kind of science behind it in order to understand what these conditions are. But I didn't want any kind of one style bogging it down too much, because I knew, if it kind of lent too heavy on one of those kind of three-pronged things, the balance would just be off and it would make it quite difficult to read. I guess I did have some influences in terms of so Fiona Wright, who is a writer from New South Wales, she mentored me throughout the writing of this book, and she has two really great personal essay collections. Sam Twyford Moore, who's actually from Central Coast, he has a book on bipolar called The Rapids, which also incorporates a lot of pop culture, and the way that he brought in examples of that in order to explain the bipolar disorder was really useful for me, and I found I've kind of really that really resonated with me quite quickly. And then I'm a big fan of Leslie Jamison, who's from the States, who she has two books now, essay collection, and one kind of more memoir about her alcohol addiction, in which she also kind of looks at some famous cases of writers who have had alcohol problems. And so this was kind of all in my head as this can be done. I'm not just making up some madcap idea. And they all get that balance really nicely. So they were definitely some references, and also just some favorite books of mine as well. I really love the narrative nonfiction style of writing, and it's a really exciting time to see that kind of really flourishing both here and internationally.
Yeah, it certainly has picked up as a genre. I feel that people are using it more and more. You mentioned your mentor, which I also had a question about. What was it like working with her, with Fiona?
Oh, she's so generous and lovely. originally, she actually sort of came to me. I had put something out on Twitter or Facebook or something about when I first had the idea for this book, I knew that I needed some mentorship in order to push my writing to elevate my writing, I guess, to a point. And she sent me a message saying, hey, I'd love to mentor you if this is what the kind of thing that you would like to do. And I nearly fell over. But then I got some funding to have her mentor me, and that ended up kind of being for the period where I developed the pitch document for the book and the first 3 essays, which became like, when I then submitted it to text publishing, that was kind of that was what I needed to have, was this pitch and a breakdown of what I thought all the chapters would be about. And then, the first 3 chapters as a sample for them to read. And then she just kind of kept popping up in my emails. So she read a lot of the early work, and I mean, she is a great poetry editor, so she had that side of things, but because she lives with chronic illness herself and mental illness, and kind of, as most artists do, balance a number of different jobs and income streams in order to make the rent. She was just really supportive, and anytime I felt a bit overwhelmed by things, or when I would send her drafts to read, and she would leave these great little notes that were just really funny, like she'd watched a lot of the references, so she would make these little references to the show, or little in-jokes from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, all this kind of stuff. And when you're really kind of scaling through your work and the editing feels like a real slog, that was just so refreshing and so lovely to have that little bit of her great sense of humour kind of pulling me along as well.
Yeah, because you speak about, it's a hard slog doing all the editing and stuff, but you're also talking about your personal pain, your personal things. So how did you look after yourself while you were writing?
It was a real slog, and there was some times writing that it felt really kind of re-traumatizing to go through some of those things in order to get them on the page. But I'm quite firm with myself about the hours in which I work. So I don't really write past 3 p.m. kind of ever. I might, and I mean, part of that is also just I'm not physically or mentally able to work really like full days. I'm not one of those writers who can just work from dawn to dusk. It's just never going to happen. But making sure that I was walking away, and if it meant I was editing or just reading or often going to medical appointments, to be honest, putting a limit on the hours, and some days just acknowledging that I didn't have it in me that day either. And sometimes I would get really frustrated at myself that I wasn't able to do it, and especially kind of as deadlines were approaching. But in the drafting stage, I kind of use those opportunities to then watch the things that ended up being the references in the book. So, you know, if I was really struggling, I'd go and watch BoJack Horseman, or I would, you know, to kind of Google through images of artwork or references that I knew I would be talking about at some point. Just kind of really gentle research rather than like reading through medical journals, which was also quite challenging. And I guess, you know, just my family and my friends knew what I was writing, and I have a really incredible psychologist who helps me look after myself. Yeah, I guess the main thing though was just knowing when to step away. That was the main way that I looked after myself.
Yeah, being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you get much more out of the work, and it's come through in the book that, yeah, you do struggle at times, but you're also very kind to yourself as well too, and very accepting of your limits, which helps to manage your condition. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is a lifelong learning process. But yeah, I have a really incredible team here who have really helped me get across the concept of pain management and how to really look after myself. And yeah, I mean, I can't work while I'm in pain, so I have to, these are just things that I have to do. But yeah, it's definitely a craft, or, you know, something similar.
Yeah, something that it's in progress constantly.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're moving on to the subject matter of pain, which is what most of the book focuses on, either the pain of the mental illness or the endometriosis. Sorry if I've pronounced that wrong, because I haven't pronounced it before. So it's written about, it's described, and it's visualized throughout the book in many different manifestations. So you've got many different ways that pain can present. And it got me thinking about the definition of pain. Now, I'm not sure whether this is, you know, the definitive definition, but it is a definition, and it comes from the International Association for the Study of Pain. So that definition has been revised this year after 40 years, so it doesn't get revised very often. The old definition of pain was an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage, or described in terms of such damage. So it's kind of like an unusual way of wording it, but definitions quite often are. And the new revised definition is only slightly changed, but I think it makes a difference. And I don't know, where I'm putting you on the spot with this a little bit, I know. So the revised new definition is now an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with, or resembling that associated with, actual or potential tissue damage. Now, I think that resembling that associated with, it takes away the described terms, and throughout your book it has describing chronic pain. Describing pain is actually a very subjective thing. Everyone feels pain differently. Everyone views a source of pain differently. It's just your makeup. There's the environmental factors and your own physical factors and things like that. Would you feel that that definition of pain would be accurate, or does it match what you feel pain is?
it doesn't immediately make me say, yes, that's me. That's what I am. And I think my main issue with it, and perhaps I just don't understand the science behind it well enough, is that the focus is on tissue, and my problems are nerve based, and a lot of people suffer from chronic neuropathic pain, which, as a quick description, is, in my case, really extensive period pain and endometriosis have sort of buggered up my the nerve endings in my pelvic region. And so they were so used to firing off signals all the time because they were, there was so much going wrong, that now that stuff is reasonably under control, they're still kind of erratically firing off signals. And this is why I feel pain. It's definitely sensory and emotional. But yeah, it's hard to, I'm not good enough at science to know the understanding between nerve and tissue.
Yeah, so, well, the reason why I asked that is because what's covered in the book is your experiences of trying to put into words and quantitative data for doctors to describe your pain, to describe your level of pain, your intensity, how it's affecting your life. And that came across as a very difficult thing for you to do, to bridge that gap for the doctors. And do you feel that you were quite often dismissed when trying to describe your pain, and perhaps the personal aspect or the perspective of the person experiencing the pain is not often addressed with doctors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, doctors by their nature are scientists, so they deal with data, they deal with numbers. But most people, the majority of people, we deal in qualitative terms, so in words, in descriptors. And so it's really difficult, particularly during a pain attack or during a time of need, to be putting numbers on things, and having that kind of ability to think really logically, rationally. I mean, in the emergency room at 2 a.m, these are not things that you want to be doing. And so often then, when you find it difficult to put things into a number, or you maybe scale things down because you feel under pressure, or you're just having a hard time putting into context how things are feeling, that's often a time in which people will be dismissed for their pain. There's also a really awful there are many awful instances of people being turned away as drug seekers when they are chronic pain patients, and there absolutely needs to be administration of how those meds are given out. But it means that a lot of the time, those of us who really need them to function on a day-to-day level are deprived of them. And sadly, there is just also a history through medicine of people who are not men being, well, not, you know, not white men, I should say, being dismissed or belittled for their pain. A friend of mine, Katarina Bryant, has written a really great book called Hysteria, which is a history of her seeking a diagnosis of her mental illness that carries seizures with it, and she goes into the medical history of the term hysteria. And there have also been a lot of studies where there's a really formative report was done in 2001, I think, off the top of my head, called The Girl Who Cried Pain, where they report, just incredibly wide gaps between in emergency rooms of women being seen versus men being seen, or women being given drug treatment and men given drug treatment. There are things that we haven't addressed on a gendered level, such as, women's heart attacks present really differently to men's. And the report, also shows that a real kind of unconscious bias when it comes to the type of pain relief that will be given to people of colour as opposed to those who are not. So there is some really kind of widespread issues that need to be looked at in medicine, and really a kind of greater diversity in not just doctors on the front line, but all the way through to teaching manuals really need a lot of work, and the system itself needs a lot of work to address some of the things that a lot of us now are just have hit this moment where we've realised that by not talking about this stuff, it's only increased an environment where these conditions continue. And so people like Gabrielle Jackson and Jacinta Parsons and Katarina Bryant and myself all just kind of happen to have books that are quite similar in topic, but very different in the way that they are written. At a time, because it's just like we've had enough. We can't deal with this anymore, and we need to help those of us we need to help the people who are kind of coming after us. And there's been a big change in the 20 years that I've been dealing with my illnesses, but there's still a really, really long way to go.
Yeah, I get that impression from the book, and we hope that things improve on that front soon. I was going to ask about, now where was that question that somebody did actually pop in a question, and it's about your writing style. It's, can you please tell us the process of choosing the right angle for telling your story once you've decided to write a book? So it's similar to what we were discussing about the writing style. So was that was a very conscious choice?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to the beginning. So in 2017, I wrote a review of Jenny Valentish's book called Woman of Substances, which is a memoir about her experience with alcohol and drug issues. And in the review that I wrote, it was, written in this kind of narrative nonfiction way, where I saw a lot of my own experiences within hers, and kind of used that to, or compare maybe the ways women are treated and dismissed when talking about addiction and misuse, compared to the way that we are talked about in reproductive health or menstrual health, or a wide range of chronic illness conditions. And that piece did really well. It got a lot of traction. And then I had this idea to write the piece of what is the opening essay of the book, using meme culture in order to offer a different communication style. I had been reading a lot at that time about, there was a I think at the time Apple had submitted to Unicode, who kind of, I don't know how it all works. They were in the process of getting disability emojis on iPhones. And so I was reading a bit about that, thinking that's really interesting, and the way that opens up communication for many of us. And then kind of just looking around, online, I started to come across meme stuff, and so I wrote an essay about this, called "I'm Trying to Tell You I'm Not Okay." At the time, I submitted it to the Lifted Brow, have a prize each year for experimental nonfiction. So I had done those two essays, and then I kind of simmered away on it, which I think is often the best way to think about these kind of bigger ideas of, I just kind of started to have these little moments of, I'd had a really emotional reaction to seeing the Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera exhibition in Sydney. And that was, primarily because of a work called The Miscarriage Sketch. I was really starting to, I'd watch shows like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and Dynamite that really helped me an enormous amount kind of come to terms with my bipolar diagnosis. So there were, and I had watched The Big Sick, was another early one where I had watched that, and it really made me think about the relationships, or the way pain and illness influences the relationships of those of us who are chronically unwell. So all these kind of little things were happening, and some were, I saw the, I guess, material first, like Lady Dynamite, and that then created the bipolar essay, or I really wanted to write about housing because there was a time where I was really, I'm still not feeling great about it. But there was a time where I was really terrified that I was going to become homeless. So then I was like, well, Grace, I was watching Grace and Frankie at the time, or things kind of fell together that way. And I think the difficult part was putting together the personal side and the cultural criticism side. They kind of quite easily went together because I'm a critic in other worlds. What was difficult for me was how much of the kind of reporting needed to go in, and how much information did people need in order to understand what endometriosis is, without too much that they then don't follow the emotional impacts or the lifestyle impacts. So that was a difficult challenge. I think it was also really important to have people reading the work throughout, just getting regular feedback on what I was doing. And they were really great at offering advice where I needed more or less of something and how to get that balance right.
Yeah, a lot of writers say that reviews are one of the best ways that they have of refining their work. And I guess it's the kill your darlings kind of thing, what to keep in and what to take out. And speaking of kill your darlings, is that your other workplace, the Criticon Kill Your Darlings?
In 2018, I was awarded their New Critic Prize, which meant that, and that kind of, so I'd written that piece about some substance misuse in 2017. In 2018, I was the New Critic, which gave me 4 or 5 long form pieces of criticism that I could work on, and so that they were, most reviews that you do, especially now, are really quite short, and so having the opportunity to work on these longer pieces is really amazing in terms of it was a real kind of technical skill that I learnt there. And Alan, who's the editor there, is really really sensitive and really supportive, and really helped me build that ability. And because a lot of those pieces, again, were, I think maybe 3 out of the 5 were quite narrative ones as well. And since then, I've filed a few things for them, but really after 2018, things have been a lot more freelance, partly because the prize had finished, but also in terms of the timeline of the book, because I met with Text in May of 2019, and then and I had received funding from Art to Say to finish the drafting of the manuscript by the end of 2019. So by that time, I was really kind of pulling back on my other commitments, and yeah, kind of if I saw something that really took my eye, then I would pitch it around. But to go back to that pain management, really needing to not take on too much given everything that was happening. And it's also, I think it's really useful to, I mean, I've been very fortunate to have like that that prize with Kill Your Darlings, and a kind of really regular contributor to the Adelaide Review here. But I think it's also really useful as a young writer or as an emerging writer to work with a lot of different editors, and see their style differences, see their communication differences, how different publications work in terms of timelines and the kind of, I guess, house style or house voice that they have. Yeah, that's a very long-winded answer, sorry.
No, that's all right. I was enjoying listening to it. It's all
been really helpful in, I guess, helping me to build the style that I now see as my voice, which is how the book is written. And I think it's really good to be open to that, to be open to exploring that, and not I think in terms of having a book published, it's important to have an identifiable voice. But in order to get to that, you really need to allow yourself to stretch it in bits and pieces and see then what makes you unique.
Yeah, and that's very much the thought that your voice came across as unique. So it's really great to hear the influences that have brought your voice to the forefront. And your voice is very clear. It's very clear about a lot of difficult topics, about pain management, substance abuse, a whole range of things that come up in the book. The one thing that you cover towards the end, and just before we finish up, I'd like to just touch on it, was your relationship with your family and how your health affects your family dynamics, I guess, for want of a better word. There's something that you've described in the book, which is communicating how you are to your family without having to be asked, without having to put your hand up and blurt out your soul kind of things. It's your colour chart. It's the colour chart that you have there. So it's just an example of one of the ways that you've managed your illness. Do you want to explain a little bit about that? Oh no, are you frozen?
The book?
Oh. Sorry, you're a bit frozen there. It's probably my connection going out. It is saying it's unstable, so hopefully we'll get through this. So just in your book, towards the end, you mentioned that you developed a style of communicating with your family, because what really grabbed me was that there was a section there, and I don't know whether it was a steady realization or something that you were aware of, and it was about the storm, that the hurricanes that surround you, and often when you're in that storm you don't see, but when you come out of it you see the damage that you're sort of sitting in the middle of, and your family is there, always loving, always supporting, and it sort of made you realize that there's a way that you can communicate with them to sort of keep in touch and to tell them how you are without actually going too deep. So you had, if you were feeling really bad, you would text the word red or the word black, there when things were going tough. How did that work for you? Did it work well?
Yeah, I mean, it continues to work well. We still use it on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, it's funny. I originally wasn't, of all the personal things that I've put in the book, this was one thing that I really ummed and ahed about putting in. But yeah, there was a time just as my bipolar was being diagnosed, I was kind of really rapidly moving between really kind of the mood swings were really fast. And and when that happens, it's exhausting, and I have no idea how I'm feeling really. So I said to my psychologist, like, my family keep asking how I am. I don't really know how I am. I don't know how to do this. I was thinking about maybe like a traffic light system, and she is always incredibly honest and humbling. So she said, mate, we're going to need much more than a traffic light system. So we made this kind of chart with the different extremes of depression and the anxiety or hypomania of bipolar. And the two extremes are, I need to go to hospital right now, I'm not safe, and I need you to take me to emergency. But then it kind of works back into from I'm okay, like I'm having a good day, I'm productive, I'm hanging out with friends, I'm exercising, to sometimes I really shut myself in. I don't want people around me. I'm just kind of comfort eating and watching TV. And then sometimes I'm really jittery. I take offense really easily. I haven't slept more than a few hours for days and days on end. So yeah, we made this color coded system, and yeah, even now, like if mum's kind of like, oh, but how are you really doing? Like if I've said, oh yeah, I'm okay, for like a couple of days in a row, and she doesn't believe me, she's fair, she will say, okay, what kind of color are we talking here? And I'll go back, I've got the chart saved on my phone, so I'll look into it, and I can kind of then look at how am I feeling, what kind of help would I want, if any, and I can be like, oh, okay, today is orange. And so she then knows that she needs to kind of be alert but not alarmed, basically.
Yeah.
And it also came from a frustration from me not being able to communicate, and that kind of annoying me, or mostly frustrating me. But also, my family kind of really struggling to know how they could help, like what's kind of practical or emotional support that they could offer. Also kind of really giving them the permission that if I say these code words, that they like, this is me saying, I'm asking you to do this, like this is real. I'm consenting this to happen. And so that chart was made with my psychologist. My GP has it as well. And so it has really helped. And I think in terms of why it's in the book, I think it's I have got my mum watching SpongeBob SquarePants now. But it's not everyone is going to want to talk through memes or not every concerned family member is going to want to watch particular films or understand the humour of Lady Dynamite, which is very particular. But this was a way of showing that there are, I guess, other ways of talking to people in your life who are concerned about you, in a way that is practical and easy for everyone to use.
Yeah, definitely, because it is like you mentioned, it's hard if you are actually unwell, feeling unwell and feeling in pain, to think clearly, and to have that sitting there ready to go for people to refer to. And it's the same for all of those different people who care about you or who you know. They can then say, aha, this is what she wants us to do at this point in time. So I found that a really insightful method that you had. So
thank you. And I should say also that it allows then my mum and my brother to advocate on my behalf as well. So I've given them consent to take me to hospital or to know that I need to not be by myself that evening and to do that. But it also means that if I was to be taken to hospital, they would know immediately, these are what her symptoms are, this is what will help her to calm down or to feel better or whatever. So they're both incredible advocates for me and for people who are vulnerable, I guess. And so, yeah, that was another important part of including my family in this story. I was very careful about what parts of their lives I talked about. I didn't, I took very seriously the idea of their privacy. And they both read the book before it came out, so that they had an opportunity just to kind of, it wasn't to give them, give me permission per se, but just so that they had time to really sit with it before other people started to read it or reviews started to come out, so that they would know, what was incoming.
Definitely. And speaking of reviews, I have read a few reviews, and it's shining. It's a shining review. All of the ones I've read have been. And I would say that I would add my shining review to it as well too. So for what you said that you wanted to achieve, I think that it achieves it. I think that it's accessible and it's insightful and it's brutally honest and true. And that would be a really, really difficult thing to do. And you've shined with it. I really enjoyed reading it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to read your words. So just to finish up, 2 more questions. What's next for you?
I am working on the development of a new book. And it's kind of a sequel without being one. It's about recovery and how not everyone has the opportunity to experience recovery, and a lot of it has naturally kind of been informed by this global disaster that we find ourselves in, and in particular how people with disabilities and chronic illness and in minorities have been treated during COVID-19.
Yeah, it's certainly, COVID-19 has certainly put mental health on the top of the list for organisations and for people in general. So hopefully that's a positive outcome, that our mental health is now being considered just as important as our overall physical health as well. I think you might have covered my final question, but I'd like to finish on, what would you hope readers would take from this book?
I hope that people outside of experiences like mine get a better idea of what my experience looks like on a day-to-day level, and therefore what it looks like for their loved ones or colleagues or friends, that these like chronic illness is not just about the illness. It flows into every single part of our lives. So there are chapters for dating and body image and housing and all sorts of things. And I really hope that people who have a disability or chronic illness find some solace in the book. It's obviously just my experience. I never wanted to write a broad scale account, because everyone's experience is different, and I don't want to, for so long people have tried to imagine what my life or my illness might look like, and got it glaringly incorrect. So I would hate to do that for other people, but I really hope that it starts a conversation for them with their loved ones about helping to navigate that, and the extent of it in their lives. But that also, when they are having a really rough time, my dream would be that they could just pick up a particular chapter that resonates with them and kind of feel a bit better, and then maybe chuck something on YouTube and watch that and feel a bit better again. And it can be a really isolating and lonely life, and I hope that I've done what I can to limit that even just a tiny bit.
Oh, I'm sure that even if it touches one person, which it obviously has touched more than one person, it's going to make a difference in their lives. So thank you very much for your time today. It's been so insightful and so lovely to chat with you. And I look forward to seeing what else you've got coming up, and can't wait to read the next one. So for anyone in the library, you can get these books from our library service. You can get it on ebook as well too, which I downloaded the other day because I had trouble getting my hands on the print copy, but I've got it now, and it's an amazing book. And if you would like to purchase a copy for yourself or for someone that you care about, please consider purchasing from your independent booksellers. But apart from that, I have nothing more to say. It brings our discussion to a close, and I'd just like to say thank you so much, and good luck with everything in the future.
Thank you so much. This has been such a lovely chat. I've really enjoyed it.
If this discussion or this book has raised any concerns with you, please call Lifeline 131114.